Yeah, today is the day that I'm going to do a pool repair on a main drain line that the pool company created the problem. Um, when they built my pool, I live in lower Alabama and I'm in a very sandy soil area, and I live at the bottom of my housing development. So all the runoff comes my way. So my water table gets within a couple feet of the surface, about 3 feet in the rainy season, and that's when they built the pool. So when they built it, they cut a trench in the gunite after they blew it in to allow the groundwater to come up in the pool while they took care of all the other fittings and got it ready for plaster. And once they got it ready for plaster, I used a quickset cement, filled the trench back in, plastered, and filled the pool. Well, when they cut that trench, they cut I think the concrete saw hit the pipe, the cross pipe between the two main drain inlets. And so you can actually hear water running into the pipe. I used an endoscope. I found where the leak is. It's about right dead center, about right where they cut the trench in the gunite. And the pool company, they said they'll work with me, but they're not going to cover it. So I have done some research, and I found a company that does, it's a website or a YouTube video that they had, and it's, I can't recall the name of it right now, but I'll get it here in a little bit. But anyway, they use a bladder that's covered in cellophane wrap, and then they put fiberglass matting on top of it, and they then impregnate it with a resin, and then they wrap it up, and then they snake it through the pipe, and they inflate the bladder that's hollow, and they blow steam through it in order to cure it. Oh, it's called Formapipe, and you can find it on YouTube. Anyway, the the process basically puts a pipe inside of a pipe using fiberglass and resin. Well, I'm going to use a bicycle inner tube. I'm going to wrap it in cellophane or wax paper, and I'm going to put it down in the pipe. And as I put it down in the pipe, I'm going to coat it with liquid nails, fuse it. It's part number LN2000. It's a water curable adhesive. And I'm going to get it in position, and I'm going to inflate the inner tube to about 10 or 15 psi, and I'm going to leave it sit for 24 hours, and it should push that adhesive into that opening, and then it'll cure due to water contact. And then I'll deflate the inner tube, and I'll pull it out, and the wax paper or the cellophane should tear away from the adhesive, and then whatever's left stuck to it will eventually rot away and be trapped by the filtration system. But it will save my main drains, which with this pool, I have noticed after a year of having it capped off with 2 test plugs that the dirt accumulation does build up in the bottom of the pool much quicker than it does if the main drains are in operation. So I believe the main drains are an integral part of the filtration system, and I want to keep them. So anyway, let me see if I can flip this around and give you a view of the pool and what I've done so far. All right, so here's the pool. It's not a great big pool. It's just a nice pool for the backyard. It's about 35 feet long by about 19 feet wide, odd shape, custom shape. I've got an integrated spa up here, as you can see, and with a nice spillover. I mean, it's a beautiful pool when it's all done and said and done. And I'm doing some yard work around here. I got a concrete in around it, finished my sitting wall, put in a pool cabana and outdoor kitchen over here, and then put a cupola up. And it should be beautiful, absolutely beautiful out here. But here's the problem. Right where this center pot is, that's my pressure relief pot. There's a pipe cap in there you can pop to allow the groundwater to come in the pool while you're working on it. It hasn't rained here a lot for about 2 months, and so the water table's down pretty low, but you can hear the water running into the pipe. You can't hear it right now, it's full. Let me vacuum it out real quick. Let's see if you can hear that. I can hear the water running. So it's right in the center, pretty much, according to my endoscope. So I'm going to take and put the adhesive on, and I'm going to snake it in from this side, and I'm going to go from about here to about here with the adhesive, about 18 inches, because it's somewhere in that 18 inches. I believe it's closer to the center. This right here is the area that they cut the trench. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to either side of it, probably about 6 inches to either side of it. It might come out to more than 18 inches. I got to get my tape measure out and measure. But I'm going to set up a test pipe in my garage and get my apparatus together, and then I'm going to do a little test run with it in the garage, inflate it in the pipe, see how it does, and then if everything looks good, I'll move out here to the pool area and get it applied, and we'll see how it goes. All right, see you in a few minutes. All right, this is my my test system here that I'm going to build to be exactly like what the pool company put in the ground for my main drains. I have the 2-inch PVC pipe. Everything was put together with Schedule 40 PVC. The main drain system is all 2-inch, all the way back to the pump. And I have an elbow on the right side that goes down, and then a T that goes to the other main drain, and then it continues on to the pump. And what I've purchased is I have a 26-inch bicycle inner tube, and when you cut it, it will be about 81 inches long, according to the math. And as you can see, it fits tire widths 1 3/4 to 2 1/4. So at 2 1/4, that should fill up the inside of the pipe, and I want to apply anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds of pressure. So my intention is to cut the tube about maybe 2 or 3 inches from the valve stem, because I want to use that to inflate it with my bicycle pump. And then I'm going to take these plugs. These are 1-inch plugs, and they fit inside. You can see that they'll go right through the elbow, no problem. So I'll be able to snake the one end into the elbow and get it to come to the T. I don't want it to go past the T because I don't want any part of the inner tube expanding that's outside of the pipe. I want to make sure all the pressure is applied inside the pipe. So I'm going to rough these up with some sandpaper and apply some glue, PVC glue, and I'll fit the inner tube over the top of this, and then I want to use a screw clamp to clamp it down over it and tighten it up. Now the only thing I don't know is if the screw clamp will go through the elbow. That's going to yet to be seen. I hope it does, because it's only a 1-inch plug. It should still leave it about a 1/2 inch of clearance. I will cross that bridge when I get to it. I may have some 2-inch PEX pipe clamps. I'm not sure if I do. If not, I will figure out how to get this done. And then the other end will also have a pipe plug near the valve stem, glued in place and clamped, and that way it'll hold pressure. It should hold at least 20 pounds of pressure before it would pop out. And then I have my T, and I'm going to have the T set up over here, and I can put a string on the end of this to pull it through. Actually, this one pipe plug is a little bit smaller, so maybe I'll put that on the other end. All right, and I'll fish it through, and I'm going to have it stop probably about right here. And then my intention is to take like a screwdriver handle and put it down into the hole. So if I do have a blowout, it doesn't shoot the plug towards the pump and the piping and run the risk of getting a jam. So that way I can stop it right there, and at least I can fish it out. And then I have my Fuse-It adhesive. And the adhesive, what I'm hoping, I'm going to put it right on top of the inner tube like this, after I wrap it with some saran and put some rubber bands around it, so it will be able to expand with the inflation of the inner tube. And the cellophane will be between the inner tube and the adhesive, because I don't want the inner tube to get stuck inside the pipe, and at least I can then tear away the cellophane, and eventually it'll rot and wind up in the filtration system on my cartridge filters, and I wash it out. I have this tacky spray that I bought. I'm going to coat the top side of the inner tube just so the the cellophane doesn't slide inside the tube, just to give it a little bit of adhesion, and it should still tear away from the inner tube when I pull it through. Hopefully the cellophane will just pull right off of the adhesive once it's cured, and the whole assembly will come out. And then I bought a valve stem loosener so I can quickly deflate the inner tube and be able to compress the air out, or press the air out of it, roll it up, and get as much air out of it as possible. Because my intention is to coat it before I send it down in the pipe, and hopefully it lays flat enough that it doesn't scrape it off on this elbow turn here, and I just lay in the pipe with the adhesive on it. And if you read the product literature on this Fuse-It material adhesive, it says even in a dry environment, just spray it with water, mist it with water to begin the curing process. So even if the pipe has water in it, it's fine, and it'll cure with the water. So I'm going to assemble this and get it the exact size as what's out in the pool shell, and then I'm going to take a saw blade and I'm going to cut a kerf in here, and I'm going to do a test run to see if it pushes up through there. Some people may not realize gunite pools have a lot of aeration in the gunite as it's blown in, or cement as it's blown in, and so it's extremely porous, and my groundwater is making its way through the gunite. Even though the pipe is encased in the gunite, the groundwater is making it to the pipe and coming in the pipe while it's drained. But I was losing 2 inches of water a week due to the break in the pipe, or the cut. I believe it's a saw kerf cut, and the water was coming out quite rapidly. The pool company tried to tell me it was evaporation, but a bucket test proved them wrong. And the leak test company couldn't identify where the leak was. They weren't able to use their sonic ear to identify exactly where the leak was. They could just hear a loud escaping of air when they were pressure testing it and gurgling. And so I decided to drain the pool now that we're in the drier season, and get my endoscope out, and I think I found it. So I capped off the T, and I put an inflatable pipe plug down in the T to the right, and inflated it there. I put my bypass plug here and a plug up at the filter at the pump, and I pressurized this side to 25 pounds, and it actually held air. And so much so that it eventually blew that inflatable plug out the other side. So I know that it's holding air from the T to the pump. And so that tells me that the break is somewhere between the T and the elbow at the other end of the pipe. And like I said, when I put my endoscope in there, I could see the water dripping at about the center point of the pipe, which would be where the pool company cut that trench in the pool. So I guess I'll get to work and start assembling this apparatus. All right, I have my test pipe cut and dry fit, and it's exactly 41 inches, which is what the measurement out there was, from inside fitting to the inside of the fitting. And now I will glue the elbow on, because it's going to have pressure on it, and I don't want the elbow to separate from the pipe. So I'll go ahead and glue it, and then after I glue it, I'm going to measure to the approximate location of where I believe the leak is along the pipe, and I'm going to take my cordless saw, and I'm going to cut a little kerf in it, just make a little opening, and that way I can do my test and watch to see if that material oozes out of the fitting. I'm pretty confident it will, out of the hole, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right, my elbow is glued on. It's exactly 41 inches apart, all in place, and I took my cordless circular saw and I cut a little kerf in the pipe to create a hole. And now the next step is to assemble my inflatable apparatus, hot dog, whatever you want to call it, but bladder, and we'll dry fit it, inflate it, just to look into the end of the pipe to see how well it inflated. But I got to glue the end pieces on and let them sit for a little while, make sure it adheres to the rubber. All right, I'll be back in a little bit. All right, so I've pulled the inner tube out of the box. It's lying nice and flat,
and I think it'll resume that that position or that shape after I'm done with my test. It should lay back flat like that. But while I was thinking about this, I don't want any part of the inner tube outside of my piping. I don't want it to expand larger than the piping because I believe that will reduce the amount of pressure on the inside of the pipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I don't know if you can see the stem, valve stem, there it is. I'm going to take this coupler I have here, and I am going to cut a groove in this, and that way I can slide this down over the valve stem and have the valve stem sticking out. And I may go ahead and clamp this just to keep it from expanding as well. And that way I can have this sitting on top of the elbow like so, and the notch will be cut in the side of it here. And then as I fish the material in the assembly, that valve stem hopefully will stick out right here and be in line with the way it lays flat and everything. And then the plug will be sitting up here, and that will ensure that I have equal pressure over the entire assembly. So that's what my plan is for now. It may change in the process of assembling this, but I think that'll work and keep the pressure even across the entire assembly. I have assembled my inner tube. I got it cut to the proper length. So this plug on the end does not come out past the T. I also put the screw clamp in an orientation of about noon at the top, the screw head, and that way I can make sure that the tube is oriented correctly in the pipe. So it should lay in the pipe at about that position right there, and I should be able to see it looking into the T. I have my pull string connected to it. Now this pipe cap on this end, it's a PVC pipe cap. It was not easy to get on that rubber. I didn't glue it for now. I'm going to go ahead and do a dry test and see if it holds. It was sticking really good to that. It was a pain in the butt to get that on there. But I was able to get it finally stretched and get it on there, and then I screw clamped it. I also wrapped some black electrical tape around because the tag end of this screw clamp is it would stand up and interfere with the fishing it through the piping. So on this end, as I showed you earlier, I have this cut, and that's going to I got a little fish string hooked here to pull it through this, and it'll go down over the top of that. And then I'm going to use another 2-inch PVC coupling I have to put it on top of this, because this is just a little bit too long from where this comes up out of the elbow to here. There's going to be some exposed area, so I'll just slip another coupler over the top of this just to create that pipe effect, so it'll compress against the walls and not expand bigger than the pipe, and that way it's got even pressure throughout the assembly. So my next step is to snake this into the pipe and get my bicycle pump and inflate it and get it to somewhere between 10 and 20 psi, and see if those end caps will stay on. I'm pretty certain they will. This one on this end, this was a real bear. I had to roll the inner tube back over itself and then push it really hard up onto it before I could finally get it up to it. But I was successful, and I'm pretty confident it's going to hold. Screw clamps are tightened down really, really tight, and it sticks to that PVC, that smooth PVC. So I think it's got a good grip. But only time will tell. So I'm going to go ahead and get this snaked in here and get it inflated and see what happens. All right, so I've got my assembly put together. I got it measured to the right length and everything. And the valve stem on the inner tube will just be right at the edge of the elbow coming out of the pool bottom, out of the main drain inlet. And I had a hell of a time getting the inner tube over these fittings The smooth PVC pipe caps, this 1-inch cap, it wasn't as hard, but it's really smooth and the inner tube sticks to it really well. So I didn't put any glue on it because it just turned into a nightmare working with glue on it. So I tightened down the the screw clamp really well, as tight as I could get it, and then I went around it with some black electrical tape because the tag end of the screw clamp was sticking up, and that was going to hinder the fishing of this through the pipe. And so I went ahead and used some electrical tape and taped it down, secured it. And the same thing on this end, you can see electrical tape, and it's just holding down the tag end of the pipe, the screw clamp. So also, upon cutting this and getting this dry fitted for my measurement, I noticed that when I have the valve stem just sticking out of the elbow here, and I put this guard on, it's just a little bit too short, so a little bit of the inner tube is going to be sticking out of this, which could then possibly inflate larger than the pipe. And for consistent inflation pressure, I'll just put another coupler I have on top of this, just set it on top after I get it all in there before I inflate it, just to ensure that this doesn't inflate larger than the pipe, because I want a consistent pressure across the entire assembly and for it to sit there for 24 hours. But I'm going to go ahead and try and run this without any glue on those fittings. I'm pretty confident it'll be able to hold 20 psi, up to 20 psi, and be all right, because it was a nightmare. This 1.5-inch plug on this end, that was a real booger. I had to fold the inner tube back over itself a little distance, and then stretch it out, and then fold it back up on top of the plug. It was a bear, but I did get it. And working with glue, I think it would have been a nightmare. And I guess I could have tried silicone, but then I'm worried that silicone would make it slick and possibly slide out under pressure. So I'm just going bare connection, nothing in there other than just the compression of the screw clamp. I'm pretty confident it's going to hold. That stuff was pretty tacky, sticky to get it up on those fittings. So all right, so my next step is to do a dry run, push it through there, inflate it, and see how it holds. And I'll be back shortly. All right, I got my apparatus fished into the pipe, the assembly. You can see that the, well, look into the end, we'll cheat. We won't be able to do this out at the pool, but you can see it's right at the end of the pipe. You can barely see it here at the T. And I also have the screw clamp oriented to where the screw head, the bolt head, is actually at the top. So I know it is oriented correctly in the pipe. And it's important. We don't want it rotated. And so now I have a little clamp holding the valve stem because it wants to fall back into the pipe a little bit. And then I took the other coupler and just set it over the top, which should now allow me to inflate that, and it'll have consistent pressure across the pipe. So I'm going to go ahead and inflate it just to try it out on a dry test to make sure that it works and it doesn't blow the caps off the end. Now out in the pool, what I'll do is I'm just going to put a screwdriver down inside the T like this, and that way if it does blow the end cap off, it won't blow it back into my plumbing towards the pump and get stuck inside that pipe. I don't want that to happen, so it'll be much easier to fish it from 2 access points than trying to go all the way through the plumbing from the pump back to try and get it pushed out. So anyway, next thing I'll show you is hopefully I'm inflated and it's holding air. All right. So I'm running into a little issue of the inner tube expanding lengthwise and pushing out of the tube. I guess I didn't even think about that. It makes sense. And it was pushing the couplings up and expanding between the couplings. But it appears to be holding air, and it looks to be inflating large enough. Don't know if we can see into the pipe. very well. I can get my flashlight, but it looks like it's fully inflated inside the tube. And really all I'm looking to do is to get it inflated enough to squish that material out through that cut, that hole. And I'm thinking this should do it. It's holding air, it's not leaking at all, no pressure loss. So I may just run with this and just inflate it up and get it nice and tight in there, and just let it sit overnight. I can't imagine it needs more than a few pounds of pressure just to push that adhesive up and run it through there. But I'm going to do a bench test here with the adhesive. I'm going to measure it out and put a little dab. I don't want to waste a bunch. Just put a little dab where it needs to be, puddle, and we'll snake it back in there and blow this thing up and see what it does. It may very well do just fine. So, all right, that's where we are. So talking about the inner tube coming out of the pipe and expanding, I'm able to squeeze it, and it's really tight. So I'm saying that there's plenty of pressure on the inside of that pipe to push any adhesive out. So we'll soon see. I'm going to get it deflated. I'm going to pull the inflation valve, the valve stem, and we'll let it completely collapse and get flat again. And I'll spray some adhesive on it and lay down the saran wrap on it and throw a couple rubber bands around it, and we'll let it go and we'll give it a try. All right, I applied the tacky spray in the 18-inch area. This is what I bought. I got at Walmart, I don't know, $4 or $5. I think I got a total of maybe $30 wrapped up in this whole project. The liquid nails I think was $7, and then the few PVC fittings I needed to buy, the end caps, and then the inner tube, and I pretty much had everything else. So anyway, I put the cellophane on about 24 inches worth, so it overlaps the tacky area, and then I folded the one side in after cutting some material off, because it doesn't need to be all that wide, just to go around the circumference of the pipe. I just don't want any of the adhesive making contact with that rubber assembly, because if it does, the pipe could be plugged by that assembly and might not be able to pull it out, you know. Or worse yet, probably pull the patch off. So the cellophane should give way if it even in fact sticks to the material. So we'll see. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that folded under, and I'm gonna see if I can find a spray bottle I can mist this adhesive with, and get the adhesive puddled up on there, and then get the assembly put back in the pipe. All right, we'll see what goes. All right, I found a spray bottle and got some tap water in it to coat this after I put the adhesive on it. In the meantime, I rolled the apparatus, the assembly, from this end to compress all the air out of it as much as I could, and then I put the valve stem back in it while it was compressed, and that way it lays as flat as possible for easy feeding into the pipe. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and apply the adhesive right at this 20-inch mark, which is about where my cut is, and I'm just going to puddle a little wide here, and we'll just start off with a little circle of it. Ugh. Stuff's always hard to get started. There we go. It's a gray color, so I should be able to see it come out pretty good. I'm just going to puddle it up on here and put a little dab, a little amount on each side of that mark. Now out in the pool, I'm going to probably run this about 9 inches to that side and 9 inches to this side in order to ensure that I'm getting where I need to be. So it'll be a considerable amount of more on here, but this is just for the test, and I know exactly where the break is. and so I can conserve material, adhesive. And let's get this into the tube. I want to spray it. I said go ahead and you can spray it to activate the curing process, since it cures by moisture. So we'll just get it soaked up. All right, I got water puddled up on it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and snake this in. I'll be back in a moment. I got the inner tube fished in there. It's in position. I need to put my screwdriver in the T and make sure that doesn't blow out. Okay. It's where it needs to be. So now the next step is going to be to inflate it and see if it oozes any of that gray material out through that opening. All right. I'm going to try and hook this up. Maybe I can turn the camera back on while I pump. Let's see. Bicycle pump hooked up to the valve stem, and I'm going to go ahead and start inflating. Probably about, I think it was about 10 pumps, so before it got fully inflated. All right, it's starting to pop into position. It's oriented right. It's starting to inflate and get big. Okay, it should start filling up the pipe here. Next couple of pumps. I think it's pump number 5. All right, so it is getting bigger. All right, let's see. Hopefully we're going to see some material squeezing out through here before too long. Okay, I know it's filled up the pipe because it's pretty big. I want to get out of the way of this plug because I don't need it to blow and hit me in the head if it would blow. All right, there we go. Now we got material coming out. All right, so let me pop this off the valve stem. All right, so valve stem's off. It's holding pressure. Let's see where that cut is. Oh yeah, it's oozing out. All right, so it's pressing out through there. Now I don't know if it's filling it all the way in. Let's take a look. It looks like it might be slowly filling it in. Actually, I think I see a little bit of shiny down there. I don't know if you can see that through the camera or not, but yep, there's a little shiny spot, which I think might be the cellophane. So the material was actually put on the inner tube more at the top here, but due to pressure it may eventually push it to this opening. So that's all I can hope right now. All right, so we're just going to let that sit. You know, looking over this assembly, it's doing a fantastic job. I can tell you there's probably at least 10 pounds of pressure in that pipe. I can barely squeeze this, what's sticking out. I mean, it's really tight. Maybe 5 pounds, I'll give it that. But there's plenty of pressure on it. I wish I could, maybe what I'll do is cut a piece of PVC pipe like this and put on the end of that coupler that I've cut, and then I can maybe glue that pipe into here, and then once I get it all assembled at the pool, I can slide this assembly down over the top, and then that would allow this to expand upward and keep all that pressure on it. I know it'll apply more pressure to the plugs, but it looks like the plugs are holding fine, which I was pretty confident in that. So anyway, that would increase the amount of pressure within the pipe. It'd be consistent. I can still see a little glossiness down in there, like there's still a little opening. However, I just put a small amount for my test, and I actually put it at the top. When I do this for real, I'm gonna layer a whole bed across the entire width of the inner tube, and that will slide it or get it to be all over the top half of the inner tube when I actually make the application. So I should get whatever I need into the gap, and that's a very small hole down there that even my Fix-A-Leak material could possibly close up. But for now, I'm very, very pleased with this, how it's turned out. And instead of thousands and thousands of dollars to repair the pipe by jackhammering out the Gunite and getting to the pipe and fixing it and putting it all back together and replastering, that's just abandoning the main drain, this is a pretty good fix if it works. I'm pretty confident it's going to work. Like I said, about 40 bucks wrapped up into this, and time. That's about it. So, all right, we'll see what happens here. Well, this is 24 hours later. Last night, yesterday afternoon, I went out with a friend and came back home probably around 11 o'clock, and the tube had blown out from where it was inflated outside of the pipe. Looks like it split and lost all of its air pressure. I don't know what time it happened, but anyway, I pulled the tube out. I cut this piece off because it was already ruined anyway. But when I tried to pull the tube back through the pipe, this was catching on the material that was the adhesive on the inside. It was still a little tacky last night when I pulled it out. But the material is no longer tacky. It's actually kind of rubbery. And I didn't put enough on there to completely fill in the gap, or I had it in the wrong position. When I apply this today, I'm going to have the entire width of the inner tube covered with adhesive, and the full length, about 18 inches. So I'm sure to hit the spot where the hole is in the pipe in the pool. I'm estimating the hole is about 20 inches from either fitting. It looks like it's dead in the center, which was where I believe the trench was cut in the Gunite in order to allow the groundwater to seep in. So I believe it's just a hole from a saw blade, concrete saw blade. But let me see if I can get a shot inside the pipe here from the end. You can see down through there that you can see the material, the adhesive stuck to the top of the pipe. It looks like it did a pretty good job. Out in the pool with my endoscope, I noticed there might be a little bit of debris built up where the leak is. So I have a dryer vent cleaner that hooks to a drill, and it's got a brush on it, and I'm going to run that through the pipe just to clear it out, or try to remove debris or whatever from it. So anyway, I had to go to an appointment this morning, and there was a Walmart right there, and so I walked in and grabbed another 26-inch bicycle inner tube, and it goes from 1.9 to 2.3 inches, which is perfect. But notice this, it's 80% thicker. So I'm hoping this will work, along with my idea of gluing this piece to a piece of pipe and having the valve stem come out of this and have a pipe glued onto here. And I got a little extra piece over here of 2-inch pipe, and I'll glue it on here, and that way there's no part of the pipe that is overinflated, so to speak, bulging out. Hopefully I can do that. My intention is to spray the inside of the pipe with some silicone spray that I have to provide some lubrication to allow the inner tube, as it inflates, to slide up the pipe rather than pushing the pipe up. I should be able to hold my hand down on top of it and there won't be much pressure as the inner tube is inflating and expanding upward. This side over here, I have my screwdriver handle that I'm going to leave down in the hole, just like I did last night or yesterday, and that'll stop this from expanding in that direction. It'll block it off, and hopefully it provide a consistent amount of pressure across the length of the repair. So anyway, I gotta go and cut this inner tube and get it cut to size and put my plugs on the ends and get it wrapped up and get it ready to go. And hopefully this afternoon I will have this applied, and tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon hopefully I could pull it, pressure test it. I'm only going to do about 10 to 15 pounds of pressure on the system. Since it's a suction line, it's not going to have a lot of pressure on it. And if it holds 10 to 15 pounds of pressure, I'm happy with it. It should last. Now, as a backup alternative, if the adhesive doesn't work, the next application, I have a boat and I have some marine grade adhesive, 5200, and that stuff sticks to everything, and it seems to be a little more pliable than this material, but once it cures, it cures. It's a booger to get off of anything. Trust me, I know. I've been messing with it on my boat. And anyway, that's a backup plan. And Marine Tex, or not Marine Tex, 5200 it is okay in salt water as well. So is this adhesive, according to the manufacturer. So my pool is a saltwater pool. So anyway, that's the plan, and hopefully I'll get this applied today. All right, I've got the assembly, the new inner tube put back together, and all taped on the ends to hold down the screw clamp bitter end, and it fits into the pipe nicely. I already dry fit it and inflated it. It fits nicely. Lays just a little bit differently than the other one, but my screw clamp is oriented on the bottom now because it got hung up last time I tried to remove it from the pipe on the old one, because I had it on the top and I think it was hitting the adhesive and hanging up on it. So I made sure it was on the bottom this time. So I just need to make sure that's oriented to the bottom when I look at it from inside the tee out at the pool, and that will tell me that the adhesive will be oriented on the top side of it, and it'll get pressed up. I just wanted to show you the difference between the two inner tubes. The bottom one is the original inner tube. I don't know if you can see the difference in thickness, but I'm telling you, this new tube is twice as thick, it looks like, or nearly twice as thick. So I expect it to hold. What happened was the seam split on the old one, and it just split right down where it was outside of the pipe, and just couldn't take the pressure. Okay, so I'm going to get this cellophane on here and get it ready to go in the pipe, and then I'll take it out to the pool, get the water all pumped out of it and everything. Some groundwater seeped in overnight. I got about a 1/4 inch of standing water in the bottom of the pool. I'll get that all vacuumed out and get this laid out, and then I'm going to get the adhesive applied to it and get it snaked into the plumbing and get it inflated and let it sit for 24 hours. And they're calling for rain this weekend, starting Friday sometime, and I'm hoping I can get this taken care of by tomorrow, get it pressure tested and be good to go, and I'll throw the hose in there and start filling the pool back up so the groundwater doesn't float it out of the ground like a daggum boat. So, okay. All right, I have fished my string through to the other side. This is the elbow over here, and I've coated my inner tube with plenty of adhesive. So I'm about to get it inserted into the tube. I'll have someone helping me on the other side, pulling it as I push it down in there, because I'm going to try and keep it from scraping anything off at the bend of the elbow. You get the tube to lay in the elbow flat and just have them barely pull on it. And we'll fish it through there, and I'll get it inflated. Should be good to go. I was not able to get the dryer cleaner through It was too big, couldn't make the bend, so I just tied a old t-shirt to the string once I fished it through, and I pulled it back through, and that should have cleared off any debris on the top of the pipe. And all right, so next step is get this in the pipe and get it inflated. All right, the inner tube is inserted in the plumbing, and it's now inflated. You can see it's bulging out pretty good up here. My little idea with my pipe wouldn't work. This cap on the top was too big to go in the 2-inch PVC. It could go in the fitting, but not in the pipe itself. So I had to abandon that idea, and I think with this thicker pipe, I don't have to worry too much about a blowout. The material's now making contact, hopefully with the top of the pipe as it was oriented, and we're gonna let it sit for 24 hours, and hopefully no blowouts or anything. I'll come out tomorrow morning and deflate it and pull the assembly out of the pipe, and then I'll do a pressure test. So, all right, we'll see what happens tomorrow. All right, the tube is out now. It's been 24 hours. I had to cut the end off of it and pull it through the other way because the adhesive is kind of tacky to the touch, and the pipe cap on the other end and the screw clamp was grabbing the material inside the adhesive, and it wouldn't pull back through the pipe. So I just cut it close to the cap, so if I had to, I could reuse this inner tube for another application. But I have vacuumed out the water, what little bit of water there was in the pipe, and there is no water whatsoever down in the pipe. In fact, I'll grab my LED flashlight here, try and shine it down in there for you. It's pretty dry. There's just a little couple drops there, but I don't know if you noticed on the video from yesterday, you could hear the water running into the pipe from the groundwater. So there is no noise whatsoever. I have my endoscope ready. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there just to get a look. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share the video of it. The software isn't sophisticated enough to share it off of my phone. So anyway, I'm going to do that real quick, and if everything looks good, I'm going to apply the pressure and see how she tests out. All right, so I put the endoscope in the tube. I forgot to tell you, the cellophane came off inside the tube. I don't know why it did that, or I didn't know why. Now I do. The material, the adhesive, has not cured all the way. I got adhesive on my endoscope, but I can see to the other side, and the saving grace right now is I don't have water running into the pipe. I mean, it was significant enough. It was like a garden hose set on a very low stream. That's how much was coming in. There's nothing coming in now. It's water curable. So I'm going to go ahead and do my pressure test to about 10 psi and see if it holds. And if anything, it'll push more material into the crack if it's not cured there. But in hopes that it fills it in even more under that 10 pounds of pressure. Once I'm done pressure testing, if it holds, then I will go ahead and start filling the pool with water after I put everything back together. We're expecting rain tonight, tomorrow morning, through part of the day tomorrow. And it's supposedly going to be heavy at times, and that'll definitely raise my water table. So I got to start filling the pool today in order to get the water up in it to at least the halfway point. But I'm pretty confident this has worked. Now that there's no more running water, the pipe's not filling up with water anymore. So I think this took care of it. So next step is to pressure test. All right, I have my air pressure hooked up. I've got both sides plugged. The valve is closed up at the pump, and it looks like it's holding steady at 10 pounds. And I want to leave that on there for 5 minutes or so. See if there's any pressure drop. So far so good. This thing wouldn't even take pressure at all before. That's how significant the hole was. And so now it's holding pressure. I hear no air escaping or anything. So this is looking really good. And if anything, if that material is still a little soft, it'll be pushing it farther and deeper into the opening. But it looks like I now have my pressure taken care of, my leak. So we're going to leave this on here for 5 minutes or so and see how it does. And we'll be back shortly. I waited the 5 minutes. There was no change in pressure. I have now bumped it up to 20 psi, and this will be the last amount that I put on it. I just want to make sure that there wasn't any leaks at all. I'm pretty sure 10 pounds would have told me. However, I wanted to take it up to 20 because I really don't know the amount of vacuum that's on this line when it's in the main drain mode, and or if see, I got that plastic, the cellophane stayed in the tube. I'm not worried about that. It's going to get caught by the strainer and the filter, and I have cartridge filters, so it's not a big deal for it to run through the system. It'll eventually rot away in the saltwater environment, so I'm not very concerned about it at all. There's still going to be water flow going through the pipe, so I'm comfortable with that. But you know, this turned out to be probably a $40 or $50 fix at the most for parts and all that stuff. That certainly beat having to chip out this area right in through here, about a foot of it, to get to where the break was in the pipe, patch it, cut it, whatever it took, whatever the pool company was going to do. But I decided to go this route first. It couldn't hurt anything. I mean, at least give this a try first, and it seems to be working just fine. There is no air pressure loss at all. I mean, it's holding dead on 20 pounds. And that's a lot of pressure, really, internal pressure. So, you know, I'm very confident that this has worked. The adhesive's still a little uncured. Hasn't completely set, but I'm going to go ahead and get the leaves vacuumed out of the pool, get everything out of here, throw the hose in, get everything buttoned up, throw the hose in, and start filling it. And the water in the piping will cause that adhesive to cure. It's water curable, and they actually say to start the curing process to go ahead and spray it with water, but there was water in the pipe yesterday when we fished it through, and it got wet, but evidently not wet enough. And plus it got down to like 40, maybe 38 degrees last night, and I'm sure that the best curing temperature is above 60 degrees for this stuff, but it'll cure now that it's going to be in contact with water. But I couldn't be happier with this repair. It has really made my day. And no more dumping water in the pool continuously, expensive water, and having to dilute my salt and my chemicals and everything, and having to constantly maintain this. I've had another in-ground pool that didn't leak at all, and it was so easy to maintain. Very seldom to have to do any chemical adjustments to it or anything, and maybe add water to it once or twice a year. So I'm very excited to cut down the maintenance and the expense on this pool now, and that I've got my main drains back to help keep the bottom clean. So, all right, that's the end of my repair, and thanks for watching. And don't forget to check out that website, Formapipe. That's where I got my idea from. I've been thinking about something like that, something inflatable, but I hadn't really wrapped my mind around it until I saw that video. And it really cued me in as to how to do this. And this is a very inexpensive DIY. As long as you know have a really good idea of where the break is, and whether it's on the top or the bottom. You know, on the bottom there's other material stuff out there you could put in your lines, like Fix-A-Leak, which I tried, and I talked to the company extensively about it, and they told me, they said if the break is along the top of the pipe or in a high part where you got to constantly keep water running in it, and to keep that agent stirred up in the water. I couldn't do that because it was on the leak. The leak was on the top, and I was dumping a full 32-ounce bottle into a bucket and pushing it through under pressure with a pump, submersible pump, and I was getting very little product return to the bucket. It was all blowing out of the hole, and you know. And then when I vacuumed this out, it actually started to suck out the material that was stuck on the bottom. So, you know, actually I do see maybe a 1 pound air loss. That could just be my valve up at the pool leaking air. It's a very small amount, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and relieve the pressure off of the system. My compressor has a little leak in it, so But I'm going to go ahead and relieve pressure off of the system, and that way it'll just, I think I'm pretty satisfied with it. And I'm just releasing this air pressure slowly. I don't want to do a rapid drop because I don't want any kind of movement of the material around the opening, just in case. I don't know that would happen, but I'm being cautious. So we'll just let this bleed off slowly, and I'll go ahead and get this all cleaned up and everything out of the pool, get the grates back on and button it up, and then I'll run around and vacuum out all the leaves real quick with my shop vac and get the pool to filling. So anyway, and back to that repair idea. If it's on the side or on the top of the pipe, I think this would be your best bet to effect a repair if you know where it is and you're able to snake this through. There could be some other improvements made to this. I was thinking about different ways of incorporating this into another fix, and maybe using like a 1 inch or inch and a quarter pipe, and put the tube in the end of it some way or another, and that way it doesn't expand outside the pipe. Just some different ideas. I'm sure there are other MacGyvers out there that can take it even a step farther. And if you end up having a break and you need to use this, I hope it works for you. Other than that, I hope y'all have a great day, and take care. All right, y'all. This is the wrap up to my repair video. Just wanted to show the pool being filled and looking great again. The water level has not dropped in 4 days since the pool has been filled. So now I'm going to get to work on my pool patio, the cabana, and my outdoor kitchen area here, and really enjoy this. I finally have a trouble-free pool. All right, if y'all need any answers for anything, just post comments and or questions, and I will do my best to answer them. And hope you enjoy your pool.